thank you so much again for the great introduction, and let me thank you and thank all of the organizers for giving me this great opportunity to be with you and to talk about this great profession, which is the simultaneous interpretation. It goes without saying that COVID-19 has got great impact on different levels and industries, and incredible impact was on the interpretation services. Now, if we will talk about the interpretation services, if we're going to talk about simultaneous or consecutive or any other different modes and modalities, compatible. So before the COVID-19 pandemic, or the fundamental mode of interpretation was to be conducted through conferences or F2F or face-to-face or physical interaction. And there was slight introduction to digitalized or technological interpretation services through some platforms, or like the phone interpretation or remote interpretation, but it was not through the Arab countries. It was just being conducted somehow in the international level. So we used to have these services provided through the conferences, the face-to-face or the physical gathering. And there was, continuous controversial debates about technology that will be replacing human, and that interpreters can be replaced by technology. And we used to say in that regard that technology can never replace interpreters. However, interpreters with quite more technological preparation can embrace the market and can replace technology itself. However, what happened since the beginning of the pandemic was a total, I can say, revolution or transformation, because due to the lockdown, the social and the physical distance, the no flight being available, all countries have been kind of isolated. So there have been lots of interpreters stayed at home with even no income at all. So this has made the way quite easier to the virtual industry, or the virtual interpretation industry. So it's been paving the way for the remote interpretation services. And talking about this, let me say that maybe interpretation is not something that all of linguistics even can perform, because it requires a very high level of concentration and mental capabilities. So if you can imagine that interpreters are now having doubled or even tripled efforts with taking into consideration all of the surrounding vulnerables. So it is now really even harder than ever before. So talking about these, lots of platforms have been introduced, and the most common one, which is Zoom, for example. So lots of platforms being introduced, and there have been lots of practices and educations to interpreters to see how they can go through, cope with the state. However, stating this, we need to understand that there are pros and cons for the RSI, or the remote interpreting. And we need to remind ourselves as interpreters, and also to remind the whole stakeholders, if we're talking about all the stakeholders, we need to remind remote interpreting has been a very good solution and an alternative for the time being. and it has helped people to get involved without paying, any concerns to to location, because there are no boundaries now. So we are now here in our meeting. We are from India, from Germany, from Russia, from Egypt, etc. So this is absolutely a privilege of the virtual meeting. However, this does not mean that we can take it as an ongoing procedure, because while we have such alternative ongoing, and it has helped quite a lot with the webinars or the seminars and the national conferences. I'm not going to say international, because international or regional conferences, I would still believe that they need to be done on the ground. However, saying that, there are some other concerns that we need to all take into our considerations. For example, the time zone. So we now have this, very easygoing method of conducting conferences, virtual one. However, if I'm in Egypt, for example, and I am the host of the event, and I have scheduled the event to be at a certain time, I need to make sure that this time will be also convenient to all the other participants, because in part of the world, this could be like midnight time for them, which is absolutely not convenient. So time zone is one of the issues that we need to consider. Number two, the environment itself. So the environment for the panelists, for the attendees, and for interpreters. Now, the environment needs to be quite as much as possible to allow all of the participants to listen at their best, and also to allow interpreters to listen well so they can interpret well. Otherwise, this will be a catastrophic. So the liability to arrange environment compatible for this sort of profession through the virtual life, it's not just the liability of interpreters, but also of all of the attendees. Because, for instance, if I am talking now, and we can imagine that there is a room for an interpreter, and for example, my microphone just went dead, or I was not, for example, as we just witnessed a while ago with Dragana, that, for example, the voice is not heard, or the microphone is muted. So we cannot blame the interpreter, because he hasn't or she hasn't received a voice message to be interpreted. So, and also the liability of the success of the virtual conference should be stated at the very beginning. So we highly recommend that all of the stakeholders, the conference meeting, and try to test their microphones, test their cameras, test all of those technical and logistic connectivities, to make sure that once they will go live, everything will be in place. And saying this, let me say that an additional burden that has been added on the shoulders of interpreters is to be techno interpreters. So they are doing interpretation services, and also they do a technical job, which is they are paying attention, for example, to the chat. They are making attention to the communication. They are making attention to their connectivity, to their internet speed, to their headsets, to their software and hardware. So all of those things that can cause huge disturbance to mental health of interpreters, and on top of this, also the the requirement to provide or to have the proper setting in place. So, for example, I am now talking with you from my laptop, but if I'm an interpreter, I should be having 2 laptops or 2 devices. So this will be also a sort of requirement to invest. So interpreters need to invest more in the time being. So rather than just having 1 setting in place, they are even required to have 2 settings. Rather than have just 1 single headset, they need to have even 2 headsets, and just started to feel that behind the scene, and maybe no one really care or pay attention to what they do or what they bear. So that's why I just wanted to talk from the perspective of an interpreter. So again, talking about the situation and the expectation, what will be the situation afterwards. So we anticipate and we believe that post COVID-19, F2F, which is face-to-face, and RSI, which is remote simultaneous interpretation, both of them will be coexistent. They will be co-partners. So it will be up to the organizers to decide which kind or which mode that they would need to conduct their conference with. And in that regard, again, I would highly recommend that the interpreters or the organizers, they have to well educate themselves and also well educate their clients or the attendees, all of the participants, to make sure that no issues, or to limit as much as possible the technical issues that are anticipated to happen during the conferences. And for sure, there are, if we can say some of the recommendations or some of the practices, your conference, that the room that you are in, which is like your home office, to be well equipped, to have a very good lighting, to make sure that you're having Ethernet connection connected to your router, so between your router and your computer. Very important to have, as we said, 2 devices or 2 settings in place. It's even if you are in your home, for example, and you have family members with you, it's very important, for example, to put kind of like a sign on your room door to let them know that you are live and you're having like a 1 hour or a 2 hour conference, just to make sure that you're having disturbance. It's highly recommended to make sure that all of your applications and notifications are muted. This is for all of the attendees, not just for interpreters, to avoid any sort of interaction in between. If you even can mute the doorbell, if you can do this, please do. Try to do as much as you can. Try to do whatever it takes to create a sort of isolated, quiet room for interpreters, organizers, attendees, panelists, everyone, just to have a better output at the end of the day. So thank you so much for your listening. That was just kind of insights on how things are going. And if you have any questions, just please go ahead.